Hello everyone. Today we'll be dealing with chapter 8. This chapter 8 is from NCERT class 11 political science, Indian Constitution at work. This chapter 8 is related to local government. When the term local government is used, it includes both local government in the rural area and local government in the urban area. So we'll see this chapter now. It is important from prelims plus mains perspective. In prelims you will find MCQ questions, fact based generally, and from mains also you will find the questions like on the problems faced by this institution at present, what are the achievements of the local self government till now, then what reforms can be done to improve the functioning of the local self government in India. So with this perspective we shall begin this chapter. In this chapter we'll study the importance of the local government bodies, then we'll see the provisions of the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, which provided the constitutional status to the Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. Then we'll see the functions and responsibilities of the local government bodies. So after reading this chapter, a student will be able to answer all these questions. Now, first we'll see why local government. In other words, what is the need of local government? We already have the central government, the state government. So, what do you think? What is the need of this third tier in the democracy? See, there are two words. When I say three organs of government, and there is the another term, three tiers of the government. So government will have three organs and three tiers. So whenever the term organ is used, it means executive, legislature and judiciary. When the three tiers are used, it means the government at the central level, which is called union government or central government, government at the state level, and the government at the local level. So we are concerned with this local government. India already had central government and state government. So what were those conditions which forced government to create the local government? To begin understanding the need of the local government, we shall begin with the two case studies. In this case study 1, this is related to Geeta Rathod, a woman Sarpanch from Madhya Pradesh. Students should read this case study and you will understand why a local government is required. Then there is another case study which is also related to the woman Sarpanch of Tamil Nadu in 1997. Please go through case study and you will able to appreciate why we need local government. Now both these incidents are not isolated events. So the representatives of larger transformation are taking place across the India after we provided the constitutional status to the local institutions in 1993. So from above two case studies, after reading case studies, you will see the importance or the significance of the local government and how it is transforming the rural and the urban areas and lives of the weaker sections of the society, particularly women, after the implementation of 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, which provided constitutional status to the local government in India. So before beginning with understanding the need, we shall see the meaning of the local government. So as discussed earlier, the government exists at the three levels: central level, which is called as union government or the central government. Then the government exists at the state level, which is called as state government. Then the government exists at the local level, that is village level, city level, and district level. So the term local government is used, government existing at the village, in the rural area, and the district level. So this is a simple meaning of the local government. Now we shall see the need. First and foremost thing that you will see, the central government is in Delhi, state government is in the capital. So which is the closest to the common people? It is the local government. You must be residing in any city, there will be municipality. You might be residing in any of the village of the India, then you will find the sarpanch. So in terms of accessibility, local government is more accessible to the common people than the state and the central government, as it is closest to the common people. Then you will see that the local government deals with our day-to-day life problems: water, sanitation, cleanliness, all these things. Apart from this, the members of the local government, they have sound local knowledge and local interest, and the participation of the common citizens in the decision making at the local level will lead to democratic decision making. It will also make administration effective and people friendly administration. With the participation of the local people in the administration, these are the benefits. Another advantage of the local government is that since it is very near to the citizens, it is very convenient for the people to approach the local government for solving their problems. And these problems can be solved very quickly and at the minimum cost due to lesser expenditure incurred in traveling. So, in other words, these local governments are very effective in protecting the local interest. After all, democracy is all about meaningful participation. It's also about accountability. So, strong, vibrant local government will ensure both not only participation but accountability. It makes administration more responsive to the needs of people. It makes administration more accountable. Accountable means answerable. Okay. Then we'll see that the common citizens will be involved in decision making, and these decisions will affect things concerning their lives, their needs, and above all their own development. So it is necessary that in a democracy certain tasks should be performed locally. Also, common people are more familiar than the state and the national level. For example, in a village, if a pond has to be constructed, then the pradhan or the patwari of the village will be having more information about the right location for constructing the pond than the district collector, state government, or the central government, which is in Delhi. So, since local government is more familiar with the problems and demands of the common people, local government is far efficient than the state and the national government in providing the public service. So, local government has direct bearing and impact on your lives compared to state and central government. So, we have discussed the need of the local government. Now we'll see the origin of the local government. How local government originated in India. How local government was in ancient times. Then what was the position of the local government during the British rule. And after the British rule in the independent India, how local governments evolved finally to the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. So in this discussion, we'll see how local government has grown in India and what are the constitutional provisions regarding the local government. Now in earliest times, there were sabhas or village assemblies. These village bodies later took shapes of panchayat. So panchayat literally means an assembly of five people. Panch means five, chayat means assembly. So whenever a five people make a group and assemble, such a group or an assembly will be called as panchayat. This kind of group of five people will resolve issues at the village level. This kind of people will resolve issues at the village level. And their role and functions kept on changing with the time. Then in modern times during the British rule, these local government bodies were again created in 1882. Lord Ripon, who was the then Viceroy of India, took a very good initiative of creating this body and make them active. He created local boards, but there was slow progress in this regard. Later, Indian National Congress repeatedly demanded from the government that the steps should be taken to make this local body more effective. So, you will see that in Government of India Act 1919 and Government of India Act 1935 there were provisions to make these local bodies more effective. Then during the India's freedom movement, Mahatma Gandhi was the strong advocatory of the local government in India, and it was based on this idea of little republics. According to Mahatma Gandhi, villages are little republics since they are self-sustainable, and so from an economic point of view they are self-sustainable, and so from governance point of view they should be made self-sustainable by creating panchayats and make them more effective. So Gandhiji was the strong advocatory of the Panchayati Raj in India. He strongly believed that if panchayats are strengthened at the village level, it will lead to effective decentralization in India. Also, the developmental initiatives which have local involvement will be more successful. So, panchayat should be promoted at the national level according to Mahatma Gandhi. Then, these panchayats are the instruments of decentralization and participatory democracy. This is how you will see that during independence, various leaders wanted decentralization of decision making, executive and in administrative powers. Now we'll see what are the constitutional provisions in the Constitution of India related to local self-government. The subject of the local government is assigned to state. There are three lists: union list, state list, concurrent list, and the fourth list is residuary list. Out of all these four lists, the subject of local government is in the state list. So state government has all the power to make law and implement it. Secondly, the provision related to local self-government was in directive principles of state policy, which directed all the governments in the country to promote the local government. It was this directive principle which was later implemented by enacting 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. But these directive principles of state policy were non-justiciable, and so they were just advisory in nature. If the government is not implementing it, there is no legal recourse. So we can see that from the constitutional point of view, the subject of local government or panchayat did not receive adequate importance in the constitution. So what was the reason that this kind of situation was there? The reasons can be, firstly, that after 1947 India was suffering from the turmoil of partition. This partition between India and Pakistan and later on around 550 princely states were united by Sardar Patel. So at that time we wanted a very strong unitary state so that India does not have to go through partition again. So even the first Prime Minister of India, Nehru, he was not much positive since localism could have been threat to the unity and integration of the nation. So the subject of local government did not receive much importance in the Constitution of India. Secondly, the constitutional framers, particularly Bhimrao Ambedkar, was not in much favor of local government. It is because he thought that the society at the village level is consisted of many factions and is caste ridden. Rural society in India is completely caste ridden, and if local government is implemented, there would be elections, and these elections will divide the society, and the entrenched upper caste people would further use this instrument to perpetuate their hegemony. So, the local self government would defeat the noble purpose at the rural level. So, from the context of local self government, there are two opposite views of Gandhi and Ambedkar. Gandhiji was in favor of implementing local self government, but Ambedkar was not in favor of local self government. Try to prepare content over this subject of around 200 words because from this perspective you can find a question in mains. Already a question has came in mains regarding Gandhi versus Bose. So here you should prepare the different views of Gandhi and Ambedkar on local self-government. These both personalities have different views regarding caste system also. According to Ambedkar, in order to remove the untouchability, caste system should be ended. So he proposed annihilation of caste. But Gandhi was not in favor of complete abolition of caste system. He advocated Chaturvarna scheme. According to this scheme, caste system is a division of labor which is based on merit and not on birth. So this kind of different views of these both leaders will be useful from the mains perspective, and every student should prepare this properly if you are preparing for particularly UPSC mains. Since having seen the constitutional provisions of the local self-government in the constitution, now we'll see the position of the local self-government after 1947 till 73rd, 74th Amendment Act. So, you will see that after 1947, local governments in independent India. So when before 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, in 1952 there was a program, Community Development Program, which sought people's participation in the local development in range of activities. But it was not much successful. So later several committees were appointed which recommended that the process of development at the grassroots level is highly bureaucratized. This has to be reversed, and this can be reversed only through three-tier Panchayati Raj system. Under this system, there would be democratic decentralization. Apart from that, based on the recommendations of this committee, three-tier local bodies were adopted in states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, and they were elected local bodies around 1960s, but still there were many problems. Since the local bodies were not accorded constitutional status, which will be accorded after 73rd and 74th Amendment Act in 1993. So before 1993 and in 1960, when when local bodies were created but created without constitutional amendment, they faced several problems. These problems are: first, they were created but they were not endowed with enough powers and functions. From the perspective of finance, they didn't had own independent sources of revenue, so they were always dependent on the state and central government for the financial assistance. Many states though didn't even think of establishing elected bodies, and they didn't even establish it also. There were many instances when local government were established, but later they were dissolved. Many states they were established, but there were indirect elections, and many states postponed elections several times from time to time, and there were no regular elections. So you will see all these problems were faced by the local self-government prior to 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. So later you will see several committees were appointed. After 1970, in 1987 and particularly 1989, P.K. Thangtang Committee recommended that the local government bodies should be given constitutional recognition through constitutional amendment. If it is done, then there will be periodic election, unlike earlier. There would be endowed with proper functions, unlike earlier, and they would be given proper funds to perform that functions. So this is committee recommended 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. Now we'll read the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. These were introduced in 1992. These two amendments. But these two amendments, now we'll see the difference between these two amendments. The first one is the 73rd Amendment Act is related to the rural area, and 74th Amendment Act is related to urban area. The 73rd Amendment Act, which is related to the rural area, will develop local bodies, and these local bodies collectively, the three-tier bodies collectively are called Panchayati Raj institutions. So the local bodies in the rural areas, which consist of three tiers: Gram Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat, and block level Panchayat. All these bodies collectively are called Panchayati Raj institutions. Now we'll see that this 74th Amendment Act is related to urban area, and they establish different kinds of local bodies. If the urban area is smaller, it will establish municipality. If urban area is very big, in a big cities, there will be municipal corporations. And all such bodies collectively are called ULG, urban local government bodies. And both the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act came into force in 1993. So this 73rd and 74th Amendment Act came into force in 1993. Now we'll see the 73rd Amendment Act. What are the important provisions of this act? The first important provision of this 73rd Amendment Act, which establishes local government in rural areas, The local government established in the rural areas at the three-tier level, collectively all bodies are called Panchayati Raj institutions. So what are the provisions? The first provision of the 73rd Amendment Act that it establishes a three-tier structure. And this three-tier structure will be uniform at all these states. So at the base level, you will have Gram Panchayat. The territorial area of a Gram Panchayat will be a village or a group of village. A Gram Panchayat will cover the area of a single village or a group of village. Then you have Taluka Panchayat or a Mandal Panchayat, just higher level than the Gram Panchayat. This is the intermediate level body. It is not required to be constituted in a state which is small or having the less population. And the apex level, the third tier or the third level of the Panchayati Raj institution is Jilla Panchayat. This will cover the entire rural area of a district. So this is how 73rd Amendment Act creates three tiers. Gram Panchayat number 1, Mandal or Taluka Panchayat number 2, and this Jilla Panchayat number 3. All three bodies are collectively called as PRI, Panchayati Raj institutions. I hope the concept is clear. Now, apart from all these three bodies, Gram Panchayat, Taluka Panchayat and Jilla Panchayat, we have another body which is Gram Sabha. So what is Gram Sabha? According to 73rd Amendment Act, it is mandatory for all the states to create Gram Sabha at the level of village. This Gram Sabha means, or it comprises, or it is a body which consists of all the adult members who are registered as a voters in a panchayat area, which can be a village or a group of village. And the role and functions of such body will be decided by the state legislation. From this Gram Sabha, from this body of elected voters, Gram Sabha, Gram Panchayat will be created. This is a body of 5 people, and Gram Sabha is a body of all the adult members of the panchayat area. So now we'll see the elections, the manner of elections which are conducted. This is the point 3, second point is related to the elections. All three levels there will be elections, and these elections will be direct. So the members of all the three levels will be directly elected. Term of each panchayat will be of 5 years, after which after the term will end, new elections will be conducted and new body will come to power, which will continue for the next 5 years. And in case if the state government is dissolving the bodies before the completion of the 5-year term, then in this case fresh elections has to be conducted within 6 months of the dissolution, so that there is continuity in the existence of the Panchayati Raj institutions. So this constitutional provision will ensure the continuous existence of the elected local bodies. And we have seen that the before 73rd Amendment, many states used to dissolve but do not used to conduct regular election, and so this problem was sorted out with this kind of provision. Third important provision of the 73rd Amendment Act is related to the reservation to the different sections of the society. According to 73rd Amendment Act, women will be given reservation to the 1/3 of the position in all the seats and all the bodies of the panchayat. Then there is reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but this reservation is according to their population. Then there is also a provision for the reservation of OBC, but this is not constitutionally mandatory, as it depends on the states. If states find it necessary, they can provide reservation. If states don't find it necessary, they cannot give the reservation to OBC. But in earlier two cases of women, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, reservation is compulsory since it is in the constitution itself and it is mandated by constitution itself. One thing should be clear, that the reservation is not only at the level of members but also at the level of chairpersons at all the three levels. For example, in Gram Panchayat there will be a chairperson, in Taluka Panchayat there will be a chairperson, and in Jilla Panchayat also there will be a chairperson. So at this level of chairperson also 1/3 seats will be reserved for women. Okay, so these are the provisions related to reservation in the 73rd 74th Amendment Act. Now we'll see the fourth provision, which is related to transfer of subject. So there is a provision to total 29 subjects are there, which were earlier in state list. They were identified and listed separately in a schedule, 11th schedule. Now these subjects are to be transferred to Panchayati Raj institution. So this transfer of subject will be from state level to Panchayat level. These subjects mostly deal with the development and welfare functions at the local level, but the actual transfer dependent upon the state legislation. So Constitution does not mandate state to transfer 29 subjects. Constitution merely provides the list of the 29 subjects, out of which it depends on the state how many subjects it want to transfer to the local bodies. State government can transfer all the 29 subjects or lesser than that. It depends on the state government. So each state will individually decide how many of the 29 subjects it wanted to transfer the local bodies. In this context, we shall read Article 243G, which says, or which is related to the powers, authorities and the responsibilities of the Panchayat. It says the legislature of the state may by law endow the Panchayat with such power and authority with respect to the matters enlisted in the 11th schedule. So according to Article 243G, this 11th schedule has a list of 29 subjects, out of which state government can pick and give it to the local government. So what are the subjects in the 11th schedule? They are related to agriculture, minor irrigation, small scale industries, rural housing, drinking water, road, electrification. Then you will see poverty alleviation program, education, libraries, adult and formal education, technical training and vocational education, cultural activities, market fairs, and most importantly PDA scheme, welfare of the weaker sections of the society, family welfare, health and sanitation, etc, etc, etc. Okay, now here there is a beautiful question for all of you students. Why are subjects being transferred only from state list? Can't we transfer subjects from the union list? What kind of subjects are mentioned in union list? Defense, external affairs, atomic. Do you think they can be transferred at the local level? If yes, why? If no, why not? Just think over that. And in case if you have any doubt, you can contact me in our doubt session classes. Now, having seen the fourth provision, we'll see the fifth provision is related to the state election commissioners. every state government will appoint a commissioner called a state election commissioner who will be conducting the elections related to the Panchayati Raj institutions. This Office of State Election Commissioner is an autonomous body like Election Commission of India. The State Election Commissioner is an independent officer. It is not linked nor is an officer under the Election Commission of India. So, you will see that the Election Commission of India will conduct the election of president, vice president, general election, that is the central level election, and legislation elections at the state level. But the local government elections related to Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies will not be conducted by the ECI, that is Election Commission of India, but it will be conducted by State Election Commissioner. Now we'll see the sixth provision is related to the State Finance Commission. Under Article 280, Constitution of India establishes Finance Commission. This Finance Commission will distribute the taxes and finance between center and state government. Similarly, we have Finance Commission at the state level, which is called a State Finance Commission. This State Finance Commission will be appointed not by central government but by the state government once in a 5-year. This commission then will examine the financial position of the local governments. Then it will review the distribution of the revenues between the state and local bodies. It will also review the distribution of revenues between rural and urban local government. And after examining this kind of distribution of revenue, it will give recommendations on which state government will again distribute the revenues between state and local and between rural and urban bodies. So this kind of institutional arrangement ensures that the allocation of the fund to rural local bodies is not unplanned or mismatched. Okay, and they will not be in a political manner. So all above provisions were related to the 73rd Amendment Act, which was related to local government in rural area. Now we'll see local government in urban area and the provisions related to local government in urban area are in 74th Amendment Act. But before seeing the provisions of the 74th Amendment Act, we will see what do you mean by an urban area, or how do you differentiate a rural area from an urban area. So here we'll see that according to the Census of India, what is the definition of urban area? According to census, an urban area should satisfy following three conditions. So an area to be classified as an urban area should satisfy following three conditions. First condition is population. So the minimum population of that area should not be below 5,000. Minimum population of that area should be above 5,000. Of this population, at least 75% of the male working population should be engaged in non-agriculture occupation. If the population of that area, particularly male, are primarily engaged in agricultural activity, then that area cannot be termed as an urban area, because minimum 75% of the male population should be engaged in non-agricultural activities. So this is the second criteria to determine whether an area is an urban or rural. Now we'll move towards the third criteria, which is related to the density of population, which is 400 per square kilometer. If these three criteria are satisfied, then that particular area will be classified as an urban area. So according to 2011 census, with such kind of definition, 31% of the total population of India lived in urban area, and so 69% of the population will be living in rural area. Now we will see the provisions in the 74th Amendment Act. As we have seen earlier, the provisions of the 74th Amendment Act. But you will find that the provisions of the 74th Amendment Act is the repetition of the 73rd Amendment Act, except that it applies to the urban areas. All the provisions of the 73rd Amendment Act are incorporated in 74th Amendment Act, that is related to election, reservation. So the same kind of women's reservation which you have in Panchayati Raj institution will be in urban local bodies. 1/3 seats will be reserved for the women in the urban local bodies. Reservation will be provided to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe according to their population. The same kind of reservation to them which was in 73rd Amendment Act will be provided to them in 74th Amendment Act. Okay, and the subjects which can be transferred from state to the local bodies are in 12th schedule. For 74th Amendment Act, 12th schedule, and 73rd Amendment Act is 11th schedule. Having seen the provisions, now we will evaluate the implementation of the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. After the amendment, all states now have passed the legislation and have created these local bodies in urban and rural area according to 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. First, we'll see the positive aspects or the achievements of the 73rd 74th Amendment Act. So if we see the achievements of the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, that we'll see that there are around 500 Jilla Panchayats were established, 6,000 intermediary panchayats were established, and 2,50,000 Gram Panchayats were established under the amendments. 100 municipal corporations were established, 1400 municipalities were established, and over 2000 Nagar Panchayats were established, and more than 32 lakh members were elected every 5 years in the local government. Out of this 32 lakh, 1/3 reservation is for women. So approximately 10 lakhs elected women participated in the local government after getting elected. This led to women empowerment. So if all this put together, the elected members of the local government, the elected members of the state legislative assembly, and elected members of parliament, then this number comes close to total 5,000 elected representatives are there in India. So with local bodies, the number of elected representatives have significantly increased in India. So this is the one of the achievement of 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. Now we'll see the second advantage of the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, that it has created same kind of structure across the country. So there is uniformity in structure. So this is the another achievement of the 74th and 73rd Amendment Act. Apart from that, this act provided reservation to the women in local bodies at the Sarpanch areas. So after this kind of provision, there are 200 women who are chairmen at the Jilla Panchayat level. Then there are around 2000 women who are presidents at the block or the taluka level. Then there are around 80,000 women who are sarpanch in the gram panchayats. So this 80,000 women has been sarpanch in the gram panchayat. So this is the third achievement. Now we'll see that approximately 300 women mayors are there in corporation. Around 500 women are of the chairman of the town municipalities. So this is all the achievement of the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. Now we'll see this fourth, that the reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes has been given. There is approximately 16% of the population in India of scheduled caste and 8.2% of the population of the scheduled tribes. And for example, there are about 6.6 lakh elected members in the urban areas and local bodies held from these communities. So 73rd and 74th Amendment Act empowered around 6.5 lakh members from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. With this kind of empowerment, this empowerment has altered the social profile of the local bodies, have made these local bodies more representatives, but this has created tensions also because the dominant social group do not wish to give up their power, and this has intensified the power struggle at the local level. But struggle is not always bad. After all, if you want to make democracy more meaningful, then some kind of conflict and tension is bound to be there. Okay, now we'll see the criticisms of the local self government, that 29 subjects are assigned, but the state governments do not allocate enough subjects. So, local governments in India enjoy limited autonomy. Then, many states have not transferred most of the subjects to local bodies. So, local bodies cannot really function in a very effective manner. Also, there is a criticism that people at the local level do not enjoy much powers of choosing the welfare programs or allocation of resources, which is done at the state level. Then you will see that these local bodies have very little fund. In spite of state finance commission, they are dependent on the state government. These rural local bodies raise just 2.4% of the total revenues, but they spend 4% of the total expenditure made by the government. In other words, they will earn much less than they spend. So here we are completing the chapter on the local government. Please go through this conclusion. If you have any doubt, kindly contact me. After completing this conclusion, solve these exercises. This will lead to conceptual clarity, and these are the total questions. Here we are completing the chapter on the local government. Thank you. Have a nice day.